Today we're going to be comparing using function notation. So I just want to refresh your memory from yesterday when we talked about function notation. Remember, when you have function notation, what we're looking for here, the number that's in our parentheses is our x value. The number that's out here after our equal sign, that's our y value. So in this first situation, if we want to find t of 5, remember this 5 is my x value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my table, I'm going to look for where my x value is 5, and I'm going to see what y is. So t of 5 is 12. When we're comparing, we have to know what these amounts are that we're looking at. So the value for t of 5 equals 12, so I'm going to write that 12 right below it. Then I'm going to do the same thing for t of 1. Remember, this is my x value, so I'm going to go to my table, I'm going to find where x equals 1, and I find that the y value that matches that is negative 3. Now once I have these two values, 12 and negative 3, I can make my comparison using my greater than, less than, or equal to symbols. I know that 12 is greater than negative 3, so I can say that t of 5 is greater than t of 1. Okay, let's try the next one. So we're talking about t of 2. Remember, this is our x value here. So we're going to go to our table, find out where where x equals 2. And we find out that when x is 2, y is 0. Then we're going to look at t of 4. This is an x value of 4. Go to your table. When x is 4, y is 6. So again, 0 we will say is less than 6. If 0 is less than 6, that means t of 2 is less than t of 4. Try this next one on your own. Pause the video and then start it up again. So t of 3 has an x value of 3. When x is 3, y is 2. So I'm going to put that down here. Then we're going to look for where t of 0 is. So an x value of 0. When x is 0, y is 2. So we know that 2 equals 2. So we can say that t of 3 is equal to t of 0. All right. So that's how we do it with a table. Now remember, we can also use a graph. We can also use an equation. The key to this, two things to keep in mind. Number one, we want to turn these into tables. Number two, I want you to look over here for a second. Okay? In this case, we have g of 4 and e of 6. This letter that's in front of our function notation is going to identify which set of values we're looking at. So g of 4 is going to represent everything on my graph, because my graph is labeled g of x. So the graph is the function of g. Now if we look at e of 6, the e is going to represent my equation over here. So it's really important to pay attention, if you're not just given one table like we were on the other slide, that you pay attention to which function you're using to get your values. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to figure out what my values are. So in my graph, I have this point here for 1. It's over 1 up 3, so that's an x value of 1, a y value of 3. Then I'm 2, 1, so 2 for x, 1 for y. And I'm going to keep filling in my graph, x value of 3, y value of negative 1. Over here I've got an x value of 4 and a y value of 2. And then I've got an x value of 5 and a y value of 0. And finally, I've got an x value of 6 and a y value of 6. Okay, and remember, these are all my g functions. These are all g of x. Okay, now for my equation, remember, the way I'm going to do my equation is I'm going to turn the equation into a table. I have to use my calculator to help me with that. So I'm going to turn on my calculator. Remember, first step is go to y equals, which is this top left button here. And then I'm going to enter my equation, 2x minus 1. So 2 for x, I'm going to use the xton key, which is right next to the alpha key, minus 1. Then I have to create my table. The table is the top right button where it says graph, but it's the second command. So we hit second and then graph. Okay, now I'm going to start this table at 1, just like I did before. So I'm going to start with an x value of 1. Oops, in my table. Like I said, the calculator, when I write on the board, disappears, so that's okay. So when my x value is 1, right here my y value is also 1. All right. My x value of 2 right here, and my y value is 3. So 2 and 3, that's going to be the next pair of numbers I put on my board. So 2 and 3. And I'm going to keep going, filling in my chart. So when my x value is 3, I have 3 and then y value 5. So 3 and 5. Come back to my calculator, 4 and 7. So 4 for x, 7 for y. We've got 5 and 9. 5 and 9. And my last set of numbers, is going to be 6 and 11. All right, so now that I have these two tables filled out, now I can use my graph table and my equation table to figure out these values. So remember, these are my x values. What I'm looking for is y. So for g of 4, g is for my graph. I'm going to come over to my graph, figure out where my x value is 4, and my y value is 2. I want to compare that to e of 6. Now remember, this is my x value for my equation. So I'm going to come over to my equation table, find 6. When x is 6, y is 11. So I can use that information. I know that 2 is less than 11, so I know that g of 4 is less than e of 6. All right, let's try the next one. Oops. So g of 2, so this is my graph where my x value is 2. When my x value is 2, my y value is 1. Then I'm going to look at e of 1. So this means on my equation where my x value is 1, when my x value is 1, my y value is 1. So I can say that 1 is equal to 1, so I know that g of 2 is equal to e of 1. And last but not least, I'm going to look for where my graph, where my x value is 6. On my graph where my x value is 6, my y value is also 6. And on my equation, right here, I'm going to look where my x value is 5. On my equation, when my x value is 5, my y value is 9. I know that 6 is less than 9, so I know that g of 6 is less than e of 5. And we're going to practice this tomorrow in class. No on-your-own problems today.